What's up, Night Owls? Welcome back to the Nocturnal Mind YouTube channel. For those of you who still don't know, my name is Kaylee, and if you want to learn more about Nocturnal Mind and what we do, there is a link included in the description. Let's talk about pet peeves. Ironically, my pet peeves are people who have very little patience and people who walk too slowly in front of me. But let's talk about pet peeves in storytelling. You've heard them before. There are a number of tropes, stylistic choices, and stereotypes that just get on our nerves as an audience. And today I figured we could take a look at some of these things that just irk me as a writer, but especially as an audience member. So here you are, 8 of my personal pet peeves in storytelling. Number 1, opening narration in movies. Now, I mentioned this briefly in my writing tips video when I was talking about treating your audience like they're smart. And I mentioned that this is a thing that I have been seeing ridiculously often in movies. And it makes no sense to me because movies are a visual medium. If there is any place where show don't tell is the most relevant, it's in a movie. It especially confuses me because most often it's being used to set a scene that we are inevitably going to see as we get into the movie. I think I first began to realize how much I hated this when I went to go see Terminator Genesis. And I think it was easy for it to hit me at that point because I had actually just recently seen the original Terminator movie for the first time ever before I went to see Genesis. So as soon as the credits end, a voice comes in, and it's all like, "My parents used to talk about the way the world was." And I'm sitting there in the theater like, oh, are you kidding me? These dots were in the fridge and they're really hard now. Give me a second. And it immediately got on my nerves for 2 specific reasons. The first, as I've already mentioned, it's a visual medium. Just show me what's going on, don't tell me. And the second reason is that this was a sequel movie. Or a reboot movie, or whatever, I don't know what's going on anymore. And so you have to consider the fact that your audience will be going into this movie already having seen the first one. I mean, you'd think. So what's the point of explaining the whole war with the robots thing to us when I'm pretty sure at least 9 out of 10 members of your audience are big fans of Terminator? It's like there's zero point in the opening narration. We're Terminator fans, we already know what's going on, and even if we didn't, we'll get there. You know, we're not all stupid. Some of us can piece things together rather quickly. So yeah, I think it started there. And ever since then, anytime voiceover comes on with narration, or even worse, words pop up on the screen describing to me what's going on, I just roll my eyes. Okay, you're insecure about us understanding what's going on, so you have to explain it to us. You definitely don't have a high opinion of your audience then. Just saying. Which again, we're talking about humanity, I get it, but like I said in the other video, you don't want to write for stupid people. So write for smart people. Assume they're going to be able to figure out what's going on. Stop putting opening narration into your movies. I beg of you. Okay, number 2. Male and female protagonists must be romantically involved. So I see this in movies a lot, and I see this in books a lot, and it really bugs me. Like, does friendship literally mean nothing to people anymore? See, I personally am very character-driven. My favorite stories are the ones that revolve around the characters more than around a specific plot. And what makes a group of characters the most worthwhile to me is their friendship. Like, how do they stand by each other when things go wrong? How do they protect each other from danger? How are they there to support each other in the worst of times? I want to see that. You know, I want more platonic relationships. You know, believe it or not every female is attracted to every male she encounters. And also, not every male is attracted to every female he encounters. But you would think that was the case, considering that almost every time there is a male and female character pairing in a story, they just gotta start seeing each other. I think this is especially harmful because this outlook begins to rub off on the young people who watch these movies or who read these books. Like, we live in a world where the term friend zone is seen as a negative thing. Like, there's nothing special between you two unless you're gonna get in each other's pants later. It's like, just stop that. Okay? You know, some people prefer friendship over romance. Some people are asexual. It happens. And some people just make better friends than lovers. In fact, frankly, if you ask me, if you're not willing to be my friend first, you're definitely not fit to be my lover anyway. And frankly, I think that's the kind of attitude we should be romanticizing, ironically. The idea that friendship is special too. Like, why can't we have more Frodos and Sams, but with two people of the opposite gender? Not that their bromance wasn't adorable, but... Anyway, moving on. Number 3, last-minute redemptions. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love it when a character who started out more toward the evil side of the spectrum makes their way to the good side. Like, it's great when it's done well. But so often, it usually seems to be used as a deus ex machina. Like, it's not like there were any signs that this particular villain began to doubt which side they were on, or began to question why they were doing the things they were doing, and then finally went over to the other side. Now, a lot of times I see, like, oh, this villain had a 2-minute scene near the climax of the story in which they question things, and then they jump right over to the protagonist's side. Like, I feel Star Wars did this in their latest episodes with Kylo Ren. Say what you will about those movies. I've heard a lot from both sides. But from my perspective, it's like you spent an entire 2 movies, and then most of the third one with Kylo Ren being on the dark side. And then, granted, I love the Han Solo cameo. I mean, who doesn't? But then you get, you know, one tiny scene where Kylo Ren is visited by this image of his father, and then suddenly he's a good guy just soon enough to go help Rey? That just further demonstrates how little those characters had an effect on me. So that's a topic for another day. So yeah, it's like a lot of the time I feel like redemption arcs are just done last minute because, hey, it's cool to make our villain suddenly become the good guy, right? Well, only if it makes sense, yeah. So an example of this being done well, Avatar: The Last Airbender. You've got the character of Zuko, who is obsessed with finding the Avatar, mainly because he knows it's going to restore his honor with his father. So he spends an entire first season chasing after him. And then you have a whole second season when he's kind of getting into this life on the run or in hiding with his uncle. And his uncle is a really wise individual who's constantly telling him it's not worth it. There are better things to do than chase after the Avatar. You don't need to restore your honor with your father because he's not that great a person anyway, so why would you want to? And it's around this time that Zuko begins to question what he's been doing this whole time. And then he has a moment where he almost turns and then he backslides, which is kind of expected. And then he does end up getting his honor restored without the Avatar. And it's the only thing he's ever wanted. But suddenly, he's not satisfied by it. He keeps feeling like there's something else he should be doing. And then finally, he decides, I'm gonna go join the Avatar. And then you have a couple episodes where they have to get used to trusting him, even though he's been chasing after them all this time. You know, it's not a quick flip around. There are ups and downs, there are backslides. It makes sense. So again, please do redemption arcs. They're great. But do them correctly. Don't just do them last minute because you think it would be a good twist to have your villain become a good guy. It's just not the same. Alright, so while we're on the subject of villains, let's move on to my number 4. The villain is defeated way too quickly. Now I know I've seen this fairly frequently, but I'm thinking of one specific book, and I'm probably going to talk about it at some point because it is the worst book I've ever read. So I feel like it warrants talking about in greater detail later. But right now I want to focus on the idea that in this particular book, I mean, really, we didn't even get a whole bunch of build-up. Like, the villain was lame through the whole book, just saying. But I have seen instances where the villain was not lame, where the villain was actually a pretty grand presence and really threatening in the long run. But then, by the time the hero gets to them, they're defeated in 2 minutes. See, this type of thing is bothersome because, and this is something a teacher told me a long time ago that's always stuck with me, if your antagonists are weak, then your hero is weak. And this particular book really stands out to me in that, yeah, the protagonist was equally lame because it only took like 2 seconds for her to destroy the villain. It's like, if your villain goes down that fast, then what was the big deal about them in the first place? Frankly, your villains deserve better than that. I know when it comes to books especially, a lot of people are really down on excessive detail nowadays, but frankly, I would love to see a climax that lasted like 20 pages. If it takes 20 or 30 pages for your villain to go down, then dang, they must have been some villain. But if it only takes 2 pages, come on. Especially if you were good at building up your villain, having them defeated like that is a very disappointing experience for your audience. Do not skimp on the final battle.